Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Darren, a first year medical student studying at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. So today I'm bringing you another one of those practical videos. In my last video, you guys liked to see some creative responses, so today I'm going to be sharing those. I'm a bit surprised that your creative responses are this late. For Scotch, it was the first SAC in term 1. I know that's the case for a lot of schools as well, but since it was requested by a couple of you, I'm happy to go through it. So I'll be sharing one of my creative responses and also a statement of intention as well, which you guys will have to write. So the text that I did my creative response on was called 9 Days by Tony Jordan. And yeah, so we'll just be going through that then. Okay, so this is passage 4. This is passage 4. In the novel, it's I sort of need to tell you guys a little bit about the novel for you to get a general gist of it. So this is like set back in Melbourne, but like a while ago. And there's these two children, Kip and Francis, and their sister Connie gets pregnant and has to have an abortion, and she dies. And this in this passage, this is located where the Connie is sort of in the backyard. She's like lying there, sort of contemplating what she should do with the baby, and then the family's mother comes and sort of coerces Connie into getting an abortion, but they don't tell the children. Ma sort of just takes Connie and they head over to the abortion center, and sort of the kids, Kip kind of knows. Kip is one of the kids. He kind of knows what's going on. He's smart. Francis doesn't know that well. And so after the abortion, it's not like a very pleasant place. Abortion is very rudimental then. Connie actually dies on the streets. So that was the passage I'm sort of responding to. And this story is set sort of in the afternoon where Kip gets home early, and then he sort of has a think about it and he realizes that Connie is absent as well. So that's kind of where this whole thing is set. Anyway, let's have a look at it then. So a lot of creative responses is integrating small things from your text. So in general, I would read the passage. So in 9 Days, they have different narrators. And in my one, I picked the narrator Kip for my story. And so here's a very specific style. I encourage you guys to read a bit of the book or of the person you're trying to emulate before you start writing, because I think that really helps you get into a zone. And there are more practical parts as well. So with this passage, first of all, overall, I try and think of what I want to happen. So here I'm thinking, okay, Kip's at home, he's going to realize some things are missing. He probably goes out to the backyard because that's a very significant place where Connie was, and it's just a significant place in the novel. And I think there's a bit of an important theme in here is that Francis is less aware of the family and tries to distance himself from the family, unlike Kip. And these are really young children, by the way. And so I want to have Francis coming home a bit later than Kip, and he doesn't realize what's going on, but Kip does, and there's that sort of brotherly tension there. So that's the general gist of my story, and then I try and flesh it out in the style of the author, who is Tony Jordan. So normally in Tony Jordan's stories, so within her story there are like 9 sections. In each section, she usually starts with some description of the environment. So here I have my, the last hints of sunlight. I've said goodbye, and it's almost poetic. The last hints of sunlight. So poetic environment description. And here I have Kip has a nervous habit. So another theme in the book is that Kip's father has passed away, and his mother is quite angry at him for passing away and leaving her to deal with the entire family. And Kip reminds his mother a lot of her husband, which irks her and makes her feel, which is why she gets angry at him quite a lot. So here I've added this little habit here, and which reflects. Which reminds her of her husband. And so I don't say that explicitly, but it's quite good to have it subtly here, and especially you can have a lot more subtle references in your creative piece, because in your statement of intention you can highlight them. So even if the examiner might have missed them and it wasn't that obvious, in your statement of intention you can mention to them, and they'll be very impressed in that case. And here I sort of set the scene a little bit, just telling them that Kip observed that Ma went out with Connie, who got the abortion, blah blah blah. And these are some quotes from the other parts of the book. There's a key theme within the book as well about sort of prestige and what type of people are we, and so I quote those here. This once again is set in Melbourne, so I have a few references here. Vic Market. I have some later as well, but yeah, these small references just really locate this section in Melbourne and really make it seem like it's in the author's style, which is what you need to do for your creative piece to do well. And another thing is that Connie is a big part of the family's sort of housekeeping, washing, cooking, all that kind of thing. It's mentioned throughout the book. And so here I have Kip observing. He's also very observant. That's another important thing in the book. And so he notices that there's none of the usual things, none of the cooking, smoke, whatever. And so him and Connie have a really tight relationship. She's always there to greet him, but this time she's not there. No one came out to greet him, and it makes him feel like something's not right. And because of how tight their relationship is, I added this bit here, which is sort of like Kip has to carry a lot on his shoulders because he has to work a lot. He's dropped out of school after his dad died. There's a lot carrying on his shoulders, and Connie is sort of that figure there that helps him out and lets him alleviate his stress. And she's gone now, and he doesn't know she's gone, but he has a feeling she's gone, and so that's why he can't help this feeling of he's falling and falling, whatever. Sort of helplessness. So if you're not doing 9 days, I guess the main thing to take out of it is just have a lot of references to your book. Really know your characters well, know the relationships between the characters, how they interact, how they're feeling, and that way you can really implement these into your piece. Okay, so next I have a metaphor here. Metaphor. I think metaphors are quite nice, but you need to be smooth with them. These can be metaphors that you've already used, or not you've already used, but like already appeared in the novel. So for example, in 9 days, this tree in the backyard is a big metaphor. Connie's slippers isn't a metaphor, but I thought it'd be quite nice to have these here. And so for this metaphor, once again, Swiss cheese market, so kind of Melbourne, going to buy stuff references. So the metaphor here is that no one realizes how hard Connie has it. She does all the housekeeping, all the working. She had to quit art school just to help out the family. And after one of the tenants of the house left, she had to carry on even more burdens. And so it's like so old and worn, it'd take only one more step. So here I'm inferring that Connie is, almost going to descend into whatever void that's there. Like she's so close to breaking, she has so many burdens on her, but I don't say that, I show it through this metaphor. Kip also likes using similes a lot, so I have things like unravels like a treasure map, sort of like Swiss cheese. I don't think that's a simile, I think that's a metaphor. But he likes these figurative languages, so I like inserting them in here as well. He also likes onomatopoeia, so I have Bam here. Is a classic one. His chapter has a lot of onomatopoeia. He's a very vivid kid. And here we have Francis. So remember what I said about Francis? He's kind of the perfect child in a way. Like he goes to school, he does all that stuff, but he's also tries to distance himself from the family quite a bit. And so he is less perceptive than Kip. Is a bit more thick-headed, and so I have this coming through in his movement. So he makes a huge racket when he comes home. Clank clank, cricket bag. So everything needs to be about Francis. He's very attention seeking. Everything needs to be about him. He's not as perceptive as Kip. I've noticed how Kip sort of comes in, he notices stuff's missing, whatever. He's very sensitive to the mood, whereas Francis just comes in and he just barges into everywhere. So what to learn from this generally is that you can have their qualities, so the character's qualities expressed subtly, expressed all through their actions. So you don't say Francis wants the attention, he's very self-centered, but show it. When he walks, he has a swagger about him. He makes a lot of noise as he enters a room. Those kind of subtle things are really good. Kip likes italics as well. Uses italics as a sort of inside commentary inside his head. So I've used that here. So just a lot of techniques that Tony Jordan uses, I try to implement them all in this piece. Once again, sort of self-centered selfishness, he's just talking about himself. This is sort of a idiom, I think, or just a saying that they had back then. So adjusting to the times that this part of the book is set in. And Kip's also a bit sarcastic, so learned my ass. And this is things he's sort of what people think of him. He's quite aware of what people think of him. He cleans up like horse stables. He's dropped out of school, so he's got quite self-deprecating humor at times, and he's also quite sarcastic. So sarcastic, humor, and once again, just knowing the character really well, especially if you're writing from their perspective, knowing them really well, what they're thinking, and putting that into your piece. All right, St. Kevin's, yeah, St. Melbourne. What a row they had this morning, eh? So remember that in the morning, Connie and Ma coerced Connie into getting an abortion, and so Francis is quite flippant. He's like, they just had an argument, like, wow, that was such a big argument. But Kip sort of knows that there was something deeper there, something more serious, and so Kip doesn't say a word. You can kind of see that, what do you call it? That physical reply to, the physical response to Francis' comment. Oh, and also here, this is a really good part. I quite like it. So the slippers, Connie and Kip are really close. Kip understands Connie, understands how tired she is, at least to a certain extent. Whereas Francis is just like, oh, it's like these shoes. They're almost falling apart. Look how broken they are, and he sort of just shakes them around. Whereas Kip handles them with care, and that sort of reflects the understanding of Connie. Francis is more clumsy, more imperceptive, whereas Kip just really understands. But Kip's also very tolerant of his brother, so he clenches his teeth together, his fingernails dip into his nails. Once again, in a commentary here, and he doesn't he understands like that his brother is just not him. And here I have a little flashback. Sometimes there are mini flashbacks in the play where something triggers it. This is quite important. If you want a flashback, it can't be random. You need something, they see something, they do something, they smell something that makes them think of another time. They go into that flashback, and then sort of that flashback comes to an end, and then you ease yourself back into the present time. So flashbacks can't be random. That's just a tip there. Keening, another phrase that Tony Jordan uses a lot. Lamont Cranston is a detective that Kip tries to emulate, and how do I say it? So I make another reference here, just to tighten it within it. Also, Kip's perceptiveness can be seen in that he can see that Connie has become pregnant. So rubbing her stomach, her eyes on Jack Hustings' window. So I don't say like, oh, I suspect Connie is pregnant, or I suspect Connie and Jack have a relationship. I show Kip's his observant nature through the way that he sees Connie rubbing her stomach, sees her eyes on the guy's window. So he notices these things, which implies that he understands it. And moments of nausea, all that kind of thing. So these are things that Kip notices, which just reflect how perceptive he is. And I just like this description. Sometimes you have a bit of poetic descriptions. And usually, so in the novel, it's Kip that lies on Connie's shoulders, and there's actually a moment where Connie sort of hugs Kip after he's like been bullied at school and he runs home. But here I have that opposite effect. It's just even though she appears strong, sometimes she seems really light, and I like that contrast there. And once again, Kip's observing. And here it reflects Connie's. So Connie has a chapter in this book. I think she has a chapter in this book. Yeah, Connie has a chapter in this book, and I think it's the last chapter. It's been a while, and her ending sentence is kind of hopeful. She thinks that, she thinks to herself that everything will be okay. And so I have that same thing with Kip here. So we still have much history to make, plus the day was waiting. But as we all know, Connie dies, so they don't have any more history to make. And Connie as well, her part in the book comes at the very end. This is a weird thing about the novel. It's not in time chronological order, and so when she says everything is okay, we know everything's not going to be okay. So this is kind of the same thing. It's like the audience knows something different to what the characters know. Alright, cool. So this once again highlights the tension between brother and brother. Francis thinks Mara and Connie are both back. Kip can hear and like can think, and he knows shake my head and drag my feet. He knows that it's just Ma. So once again, showing not telling is kind of a basic concept, but it's really important. I don't say like, oh, I know that Connie can't possibly be home. I just say he shakes his head and drags his feet. And Francis once again has an avoidance of family, and so the moment Kip gets to Ma, Francis is the one who can't be seen. He's gone off to somewhere, and this is reflected later in the book as well. When we find out that Kip looks after his mum and Francis just goes off and does his own thing. So this kind of preemptively shows this dynamic of Francis leaving the family, doing his own thing, success, whatever, and Kip being looking after this family, feeling a loyalty to the family, even though people like Ma haven't treated him that well. And yeah, so Kip has to take on a much bigger role. I am foreshadowing that, like indicating that this will come. So this definitely comes later. And here I'm showing this is where the seeds have been planted of Kip being the one that has to look after Ma, that has to do all this. He has to force his feet. It's not a habit for him, right? He's been a kid all this time, and now he has to do all this. It's not where he wants to be, where he needs to stay. So that shows like a budding maturity. His emotional maturity there. He's sort of telling himself to be steady. And here was just like you got to end it strong. Some people end with something from the book, but I think you got to end with something special. My teacher said something just is your own, adds a bit of zest to it. And so this is Kip. His heart has been left behind, along with Connie, along with like wanting to cry, all those emotions that he wants to show. But because of the burdens on him now to look after his mother, all that, he has to leave his heart behind and instead has to follow, his feet, has to follow the mechanical actions, has to do the cooking, the cleaning, take up those responsibilities now. So some main takeaways with this piece. Show don't tell is a big one. Let me show don't tell, and this is particularly true with character qualities. 2, know your characters really well, and also their relationships and dynamics between them. 3, research like the times, so when it was written, popular sayings, references, places, popular sayings. Things like metaphors are quite nice. It kind of depends what type of writer the person is. And like make them smooth and woven in. So smooth, and everything must be smooth and woven in. Either the metaphors, the figurative language, the references, it can't feel weird. It has to feel like the author has put it there. And it does take some time. It took me some time to write these. But yeah, that's how you can prepare best. Alright, we'll move on to the statement of intention then. So for passage 4, let's have a look. Alright, passage 4. So statement of intention, there's quite a strict structure. 1, I just write like what I've written. 2, what passage, what prompt might be better for you guys, and what I wrote basically. And here I just talk a bit about the passage because there are a couple options in the SAC. I just like to locate the examiner more securely in what happened in the passage, and you have time to do it as well. So here, so what happened in the passage, in the actual passage. Here I want to observe Kip. So this is why I wrote it. and so it's giving my reasoning. So I'm saying that, okay, I set my passage on the night of the incident as Kip waits and observes things. So I know he's observant, he would have known about her symptoms leading up to her death. And so this is the reason why I wrote it. So it's like you need a good reason to pick a character or to pick a moment to explore. And here I'm justifying. So justify. And here I just show that like things that show Kip is perceptive are my bad. Here I am just showing a lot of the references that I made. So once it sort of gets to this stage, you just talk about Kip's qualities, or the character's qualities, and what you've done in your piece to reflect that. So it's pretty like one after the other. So Kip shows that he's perceptive. So I say how he notices that the smoke is absent, and you can quote from your own piece here as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And so yeah, stop and head. So stylistically, metaphors, cultural references, and so I have this Donald Bradman treasure map simile Donald Bradman reference. He has an upbeat tone, occasional onomatopoeia, and so I even acknowledged some subtlety to that. So because it was such a serious atmosphere, I only used one bam. I didn't use like a ton of onomatopoeia. I didn't go overboard. So another of Kip's characteristics, he hears something that makes him think of something else. And I imitated this when he hears this and then thinks about how Ma, so this is the part where he reminds his mum of her husband. Yeah, and this continues blah 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 blah, which is just to show that his thoughts jump a lot, but they're linked. So like he thinks of something which leads to something else, which leads to something else, but there is a link between each one. And finally, I'm not sure whether all schools do this, but our last sentence was sort of who was our main audience, and oftentimes the audience is the author, or in my case it was sort of the author. So Kip, in my place, was someone who had to take on a lot of burdens, who had a very like a difficult, not the smoothest childhood, and now he has to take on even more burden. So my piece is aimed towards young people who have to grapple with their emotions, and oftentimes because you're writing about someone's plight, you're hoping that someone with a similar set of circumstances can find courage in the way that this person has navigated the circumstances, and also find courage in the way that they're not the only person going through this. And yeah, so that was my STEM intention. I'll just write that. What was that? So target audience. And in this bulk of the paragraph here, that is just saying like, so character's quality or the author's style here, and then sort of where you've incorporated in your piece. And you just repeat that as many times as you'd like to capture the main parts of your piece. Thank you guys for joining me in today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it and gotten something out of it. Good luck for your creative sacks and your statement of intentions that you'll have to write if you're preparing for those. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know of any sections of subjects that you'd like me to break down. Good luck for the upcoming sacks, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.